Maria had been working as a maid in the wealthy Kensington household for nearly 2 years. Her life was nothing short of struggle, raising 2 children on her own in a small, run-down apartment, working long hours cleaning, cooking, and ironing clothes for the millionaire businessman Richard Kensington and his glamorous wife, Evelyn. Despite the hardships, Maria never complained. She was grateful to have a job that paid enough to keep food on the table, even if her dignity was often bruised by Evelyn's sharp tongue. Evelyn was everything Maria wasn't: elegant, cold, and calculating. She wore diamonds like they were casual accessories and never lifted a finger in her own house. Yet, behind the flawless makeup and designer gowns, there was something unsettling about her, something Maria had always sensed but could never quite put into words. Richard, on the other hand, was the complete opposite of his wife. Though he was immensely wealthy, he treated people with warmth. Maria remembered how, on Christmas Eve, he had sent her home with extra groceries and gifts for her children, something Evelyn had scoffed at. "Don't spoil the help," Evelyn had snapped that night. But Richard had only smiled and said, "Kindness costs nothing." It was late one evening when Maria, finishing up in the kitchen, overheard a conversation that made her blood run cold. Evelyn was in the study, her voice low but sharp as glass. Maria had only gone to put away some freshly laundered napkins when the words drifted through the half-open door. "He trusts me too much," Evelyn hissed into the phone. "Tomorrow night, after the dinner, it'll all be over. The papers will call it an accident, and I'll have everything." Maria froze, her hands trembling. She peeked through the crack in the door and saw Evelyn holding a small vial of clear liquid. Poison. Evelyn swirled it in her perfectly manicured fingers with a smile that chilled Maria to the bone. Maria backed away, her heart pounding. Evelyn was planning to kill Richard. The thought made her sick. He had been nothing but kind, and now his own wife, someone he loved and trusted, was plotting against him. But what could Maria do? She was just a maid. No one would believe her over Evelyn, the sophisticated socialite with connections everywhere. If Maria tried to speak up, Evelyn could easily turn it against her, accuse her of lying, maybe even have her fired, or worse. That night, Maria couldn't sleep. She thought of her children, the roof over their heads, the job she couldn't afford to lose. But she also thought of Richard, a good man whose life was in danger. By morning, Maria had made up her mind. She would act. The next evening, the Kensingtons hosted a grand dinner with business associates. Maria served quietly, her eyes darting to Evelyn at every opportunity. She saw the glimmer of the vial slip from Evelyn's clutch and disappear into Richard's wine glass as she laughed at some joke from across the table. Maria's heart almost stopped. She knew she had seconds. With trembling hands, she stepped forward just as Richard raised the glass to his lips. "Don't talk," she whispered urgently, taking the glass from his hand and bowing as if she was simply serving him another. Richard looked confused but said nothing, sensing her urgency. Maria replaced the glass discreetly, and no one at the table noticed. Evelyn's eyes narrowed, a flicker of suspicion crossing her face. Maria avoided her gaze, her heart hammering in her chest. That night, as the guests left and Richard retreated to his study, Maria lingered, her hands clenched. She had saved his life, but she knew Evelyn wouldn't stop. This was only the beginning. The following days were a silent battlefield. Maria went about her duties with extra caution, constantly aware of Evelyn's piercing gaze. She had seen the suspicion in her mistress's eyes that night. Evelyn knew something was off. And Maria knew Evelyn was ruthless enough to strike again. Richard remained oblivious. He trusted his wife too much, blind to the malice that hid behind her charming smile. But Maria noticed small things: the way Evelyn watched Richard when he wasn't looking, the way she sometimes fiddled with the locked drawer in her dresser, or how she whispered angrily into her phone late at night. Maria wanted to tell Richard, but every time she opened her mouth, fear stopped her. What if he dismissed her as paranoid? Worse, what if he told Evelyn what she'd said? Maria's job, her reputation, even her safety would be destroyed. Still, she couldn't ignore what she had witnessed. Richard's life was in danger. One evening, while dusting Evelyn's dressing table, Maria spotted the vial again, half empty this time. Her breath caught in her throat. Evelyn wasn't done. That night, Maria stayed later than usual. As she finished cleaning the kitchen, she heard movement upstairs. Curiosity, or perhaps instinct, drove her up the staircase quietly. She paused near the bedroom door and heard Evelyn's voice. "Tomorrow at the board meeting," Evelyn whispered coldly. "He'll drink the coffee, and no one will ever suspect." Maria's heart lurched. Another attempt, this time in public. She pressed a hand against the wall to steady herself. She couldn't let it happen. But how could she stop it without exposing herself? She had to find proof, something undeniable. The next morning, Maria woke up determined. She searched Evelyn's vanity while the lady of the house was out at the spa. Behind the false back of a drawer, she found several items: the vial, papers with Richard's insurance policies, and even photographs of Evelyn with another man. Shock hit Maria like a wave. Evelyn wasn't just trying to kill her husband for money, she was planning to run away with her lover. Maria stuffed the evidence into a small cloth bag, her hands shaking. She now had proof. But before she could slip it into her apron, a cold voice stopped her. Well, Evelyn said from the doorway, her eyes narrowed. What do we have here? Maria froze. Evelyn had returned earlier than expected. You've been snooping, haven't you? Evelyn's voice was low, dangerous. Do you think anyone would believe a maid's word over mine? I could ruin you in an instant. Maria clutched the bag to her chest. Please, madam, don't do this. He's a good man. He doesn't deserve this. Evelyn's lips curled into a cruel smile. Don't talk. You don't get to lecture me. She stepped closer, but Maria backed away. For the first time, Maria realized Evelyn wasn't just cruel, she was truly dangerous. That night, Maria stayed awake, her mind racing. She couldn't keep this secret any longer. She had proof now, and she had to warn Richard before it was too late. The next morning, as Richard prepared for his board meeting, Maria gathered her courage. She entered his study, clutching the cloth bag. Her voice trembled, but her eyes held determination. Sir, she whispered, please, don't drink anything Evelyn gives you today. And, you need to see this. Richard looked up, startled. Maria placed the bag on his desk and slowly opened it, revealing the vial, the insurance papers, and the photographs. For a moment, silence hung heavy in the room. Richard's face drained of color as realization dawned. He reached for the papers, his hands trembling. My God, he whispered. Evelyn. Maria swallowed hard. I didn't know how to tell you before. But she's planning to. The sound of footsteps cut her off. Evelyn stood at the doorway, her face pale but her eyes blazing with fury. The silence was suffocating. Evelyn's eyes darted from Richard to Maria, then to the evidence spread across the desk. Her mask of charm slipped, revealing the venom beneath. So, Evelyn hissed, the little maid finally found her courage. Richard rose from his chair, disbelief and anger warring on his face. Evelyn, is this true? Were you really planning to poison me? After everything? Evelyn laughed bitterly. Don't act so surprised, Richard. You were too busy with your empire to notice your own wife was suffocating. I deserve more than being your trophy. More. Richard's voice shook. You already had everything: wealth, comfort, respect. And yet you plotted murder. Evelyn's gaze hardened. I deserve freedom. I deserve to live with someone who actually sees me. Do you know how easy it was to smile while you buried yourself in business deals? You never even noticed I was slipping away. Maria stood silently, clutching the edge of the desk, her heart pounding. This was spiraling fast. Richard's voice turned cold. And your solution was to kill me. To take the fortune and run off with your lover. Evelyn's jaw tightened, her eyes narrowing at Maria. This is your fault, she spat. You should have stayed silent. You're nothing but a servant. Don't talk when your betters are speaking. For the first time, Maria found her voice steady and strong. I may be a servant, madam, but I will not stand by and watch you destroy a good man. Evelyn lunged forward, but Richard intercepted, gripping her wrist. Enough, he thundered. You've already damned yourself with your own words. The confrontation escalated quickly. Evelyn twisted and screamed, but Richard called for security. Within minutes, 2 guards rushed in. They restrained Evelyn as she kicked and cursed, her elegant composure gone. Let me go, she shrieked. You'll regret this, Richard. But Richard's face was resolute, his eyes filled with betrayal. I regret ever trusting you. The police arrived shortly after, summoned by Richard's assistant. The evidence Maria had uncovered sealed Evelyn's fate. The vial tested positive for poison, and the photographs with her lover were undeniable. Evelyn was arrested, her cries echoing through the marble halls as she was led away in handcuffs. When silence returned to the mansion, Richard turned to Maria. His expression softened, though his eyes still carried the weight of heartbreak. You saved my life, he said quietly. If it weren't for you, I'd be dead. Maria lowered her gaze, humility in her voice. I only did what was right, sir. But Richard shook his head. No, Maria, you did far more than that. You risked everything, your job, your safety, for me. That kind of loyalty can't be repaid with just words. Over the following weeks, the household transformed. Evelyn was gone, awaiting trial for attempted murder and fraud. Richard, though shaken, began to rebuild his life. He often spoke with Maria, not as a servant but as a confidant. One afternoon, he invited her to his office. On the desk lay a legal document. You've worked tirelessly for me and my home, Richard said. But after what you've done, I can't let you struggle any longer. From today, you'll no longer be just a maid. I'm setting up a trust for your children's education, and I'd like you to oversee the household in a managerial role. Maria's eyes filled with tears. She had never dreamed of such a future. Sir, I don't know what to say. Richard smiled faintly. Just say you'll stay. This house feels safer with you in it. Maria nodded, her heart swelling with gratitude. And so, the poor maid who once whispered, "Don't talk," to save a life found her own voice. She had uncovered betrayal, saved a man's future, and secured a better life for her children. As she stood in the grand hall, watching the evening sun pour golden light across the floors, Maria realized something profound. Sometimes, the most powerful voices come from those the world tries hardest to silence.